Everyone passed me over like background noise while my sister got compliments on her life. I let it go, until at my grandma's birthday she asked where I lived now. I said, just a little penthouse overlooking Central Park. My sister spit her champagne. My mom looked like she saw a ghost. My uncle just whistled and said, well, well, well. For most of my life I was the one you forgot to mention. Not out of spite maybe, but definitely out of indifference. At every family dinner, every birthday party, every get-together, the spotlight naturally landed on my sister Brooke. She was the golden girl. Everyone's favorite. Star cheerleader in high school, straight-A student, married young to a guy who owned a boat, and posted well-lit Instagram pictures of their matching golden retrievers. My mom would go on about her for hours like a broken record that only played one track. Me, I was just Emma. Quiet, awkward Emma who moved out early and didn't come home much. I was the one setting up Wi-Fi routers at Thanksgiving while my sister unwrapped gift bags filled with perfume and cashmere scarves. My uncle once asked if I was still doing computer stuff. My aunt forgot my birthday 2 years in a row. But I didn't complain. I didn't need their attention. Or so I told myself. After college I took a job in IT support. It was entry-level, thankless and draining. But I kept pushing. I spent nights teaching myself coding languages, building apps, freelancing on the side. My apartment was tiny but my screens were big. When most people were winding down I was gearing up, grinding through bug fixes and late-night sprints with overseas teams. It wasn't glamorous and I sure as hell didn't post about it. Nobody in my family knew what I did. They never asked. One time when I tried to explain a new job title I'd gotten, my dad cut me off to ask Brooke about her yoga retreat in Sedona. The funny part? That new job paid me more in bonuses than Brooke's husband made all year. So I kept it to myself. I built my own little empire in silence. Promotions came. So did recruiters. I moved from support to systems architecture, then product management, then head of a whole division at a cybersecurity firm. I relocated to New York alone and leased a penthouse I never mentioned to anyone. I traveled to Singapore for work, London for conferences. I bought a Tesla, paid it off in cash and let my family believe I still lived in a studio in Queens. They didn't care so I didn't bother. But then my grandma turned 80 and there was no skipping that party. I flew back in on a red-eye. Didn't say a word to anyone. Just showed up at the country club in a black dress and heels I usually reserved for boardrooms. My mom blinked twice when she saw me like she didn't recognize me at first. My sister hugged me like she was checking for signs of plastic surgery. We were sipping champagne when my grandma, who's always been sharp as a knife, turned to me and asked where I lived now. I hadn't even opened my mouth yet when my mom interjected with some guess about Brooklyn or Hoboken. I smiled and said just a little penthouse overlooking Central Park. The table went dead silent. Brooke actually spit her champagne onto her plate. My mom's face drained completely. My uncle let out this low whistle and muttered, well, well, well. And just like that they all saw me. But that was just the beginning. After that night at the country club I stopped being invisible. The woman who once asked me to refill the water pitcher mid-dinner now hung on to every word I said. My uncle, who used to pat me on the head like a golden retriever, suddenly wanted to talk investments. And my mom, who once told a neighbor I worked with computers or something, started introducing me as her daughter who runs cybersecurity for global finance companies. That wasn't even technically true, but I didn't bother correcting her. Brooke. Oh, Brooke. She texted me the next morning with a million exclamation points and asked if I was free to grab coffee before I flew back to New York. Said she missed me. Said it had been too long. I stared at the message for a while before replying. Because the last time we'd spoken she told me she didn't have time to deal with my emotional distance when I skipped her gender reveal party. The one I wasn't invited to. But still I met her. We sat at a cafe near my hotel and she launched right into a monologue about how hard life had been lately. Her husband's new startup was flopping. The baby wasn't sleeping. He was stressed. Exhausted. She mentioned 3 times how expensive daycare was. I just nodded and listened. Then she tilted her head and said, "You're lucky you don't have to worry about money anymore." It wasn't even a question. From there it snowballed. Suddenly, everyone had a reason to call. Brooke needed help covering the cost of the new SUV. Something about safety features and financing delays. My mom called about her kitchen. She was so close to finally doing that renovation and wanted to know if I could help, just to get it over the finish line. My dad's knee surgery wasn't going to be covered in full. He didn't want to ask, of course. But maybe I could do it for him. Just this once. I said yes. Every time. Not because I didn't see what was happening, but because I wanted it to be something else. I wanted to believe they'd changed. That they cared. That finally, after years of being a side character in my own family, I was being seen, respected, appreciated. And in a way I was. We had dinners again. Group chats that used to have just Brooke and my parents now had my name at the top. Brooke started tagging me in Facebook posts. My mom called me her lifesaver. My dad even asked if I'd teach him about crypto, which was hilarious because he still wrote checks at the grocery store. For a while it worked. I was on cloud 9, floating on the illusion that my family actually loved me back. I didn't count the money. I didn't track the transfers. I didn't question anything. Until the day I got a call from my grandma. She never called me unless something was wrong. She was sharp, always had been. Saw through things most people didn't. She was the only one in the family who never made me feel small. That day her voice was quiet. Not frail, just hesitant. She asked if I had a moment to talk, then paused. Then she said something that shifted everything. "Emma, I need to tell you something. And I don't think you're going to like it." I held my breath. She told me she'd overheard a conversation. Brooke, my mom and my dad. In the backyard after a barbecue, talking about me. About how I'd finally become useful. About how it was about time I paid back for all those years of doing nothing. About how they should keep her close, at least until the kitchen's done and the SUV's paid off. She told me. Brooke laughed and said, "Emma doesn't even notice. She thinks we care." My grandma said she almost walked out right then but didn't want to cause a scene. My chest burned. Not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. Not really. I think deep down I always knew, but hearing it out loud made it real. I didn't say anything to my grandma for a long time. Then I thanked her and told her I'd call her later. I hung up, sat down on my designer couch in my sky-high apartment and stared out over Central Park. And that was the moment everything changed. I didn't confront them right away. I know that's what most people expect at that point. A blow-up. A dramatic call. Me storming in and demanding answers. But something in me went quiet instead. Like a switch flipped and suddenly I was outside myself, watching everything from a distance. So I stayed. I smiled. I answered calls. I wanted to see how far it would go now that I knew the truth. The first thing I noticed was how casual the expectations had become. Brooke didn't ask anymore. He just talked. She'd mention expenses the way people mention the weather. Daycare was brutal this month. The car payment was stressing them out. Her husband's business needed just a little push to get over the hump. Every sentence hovered, waiting for me to fill in the gap. My mom did the same thing. She never directly said the words, but she didn't have to. She'd send photos of cabinet samples, countertops, flooring, then follow up with something like, "Isn't it crazy how expensive materials are now?" Or, "We're thinking of doing it while we're still healthy enough to enjoy it." My dad was subtler. He'd call to check in, then drift into stories about friends who retired early, who traveled, who didn't have to worry about medical bills. He'd laugh and say, "Must be nice." Then he'd go quiet, like he was waiting for me to volunteer something. And I always did. At least I used to. After my grandmother's call, I stopped sending money. I didn't announce it. I didn't explain. I just didn't do it. I kept everything else the same. Same tone. Same availability. Same warmth. I wanted to see if they'd notice the absence before they noticed me. They didn't. Not at first. What they did notice was Christmas coming up. They insisted I come early this year. Said it had been too long since we'd all been together properly. Brooke said the baby needed to see her aunt more. My mom said it wouldn't feel right without me there. I booked the flight. When I arrived, everything was picture perfect. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine. Music played softly. My mom hugged me longer than usual. Brooke kept touching my arm when she talked, like we were suddenly close. My dad poured me a drink and asked about New York, about work, about my view. They were performing. All of them. I watched it happen in real time. Dinner was loud and cheerful. Gifts were exchanged. Mine were extravagant like always. I noticed how no one looked uncomfortable taking them anymore. That used to bother me. This time it didn't. After dessert, my mom suggested coffee in the living room. Everyone migrated there, settling into their usual spots. Brooke kicked her feet up. My dad loosened his collar. It felt like the end of a long play, the moment where the actors relax because the audience is still applauding. That's when I spoke. I asked Brooke if she remembered the barbecue a few months back. The one at my parents' place. I asked if she remembered standing in the backyard with mom and dad after everyone else went inside. She froze. Not dramatically. Just enough. My mom said my name like a warning. My dad didn't say anything at all. I told them I knew what they said. I didn't repeat it word for word. I didn't need to. Their faces told me everything. The shock wasn't that I was upset. It was that I knew. My mom started talking immediately. Explaining. Backtracking. Saying things about jokes being taken out of context. About stress. About how families say things they don't mean. I let her talk. Then I told them I understood exactly what our relationship had been. That I wasn't angry anymore. Just finished. That I didn't want to be the solution to their problems or the funding source for their plans. Brooke tried to interrupt. I didn't stop her. I just stood up, put my coat on and said I was leaving. I told them not to call me to fix things. Not to apologize. Not to explain. I said I'd already made my decision. As I opened the door, I heard my mom say my name again. Softer this time. I didn't turn around. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. My grandmother was already there, standing on the porch like she'd been waiting. She didn't ask questions. She didn't say she was proud. She just nodded once and got into the car with me. We drove away in silence. For the first time since that night at her birthday party, I didn't feel tense. I didn't feel like I was bracing for the next thing. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. I didn't expect anything after that night. No texts. No calls. Nothing. I figured they'd leave it alone, stew in it, maybe gossip about me to each other, but ultimately back off. For a while, that's exactly what happened. Silence. Clean, complete silence. My grandmother stayed in touch, of course. She invited me out to her place in Florida for a week. Just the two of us. No drama, no questions, no casual conversations about anyone's financial situation. We walked the beach every morning and made dinner at home. I hadn't felt that light in years. Then 2 weeks after I got back to New York, something weird happened. I got a call from a recruiter I didn't recognize. He sounded eager, a little too eager. Said he had a client looking for someone to lead a new cybersecurity division. Said my name had come up. Said he'd seen my information on a family-run professional network. I'd apparently joined. I hadn't joined anything. I told him I wasn't interested and hung up. But the call stayed with me. An hour later, I started digging. It took me about 15 minutes to find it. A fake LinkedIn-style profile someone had created using my full name, photo, job history, and a whole lot of exaggerated nonsense. SEO titles. Fake endorsements. It was sloppy, but just polished enough to pass if you weren't paying close attention. And it was linked, very obviously, to a new consulting firm run by someone named Matthew Kalman. I had never heard of him, but the website listed my name as a silent partner. There was a phone number. I called it. Guess whose voice answered? My dad. I didn't even give him time to talk. I asked him what the hell he was doing. He stammered, tried to backtrack, said something about just trying to help build something for the family and leveraging our collective success. I hung up. Not 10 minutes later, Brooke called. She said she had nothing to do with it, but that wasn't what set me off. She said, "You don't understand how much we needed this. Things are really hard right now." Like that was a reason. I sent a cease and desist that night. Through my lawyer, who was not cheap. I had to shut down the website, scrub the fake profiles, and deal with the fallout from 2 investors who'd already reached out thinking I was involved. It could have ruined me. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was realizing they didn't just want my money anymore. They wanted my name. They wanted to wear my success like a coat and walk around in it, pretending they'd built something too. I was no longer just a resource. I was their brand. And they didn't think I'd notice. I called my grandmother that night, pacing my apartment, still half in disbelief. She didn't sound surprised. He just said, "I warned you, Emma. They don't love people. They love what people can give them." That stuck with me. After that, I changed everything. New number. New accounts. I wiped my digital presence clean and built it back from scratch with firewalls you'd need a government badge to get through. I stopped answering unknown numbers. I went full ghost. I also left the city for a while. Not forever, just long enough to clear my head. What I didn't expect during that time was the letter. A real one. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a note. It wasn't signed, but it said, "We didn't mean to hurt you. We were just scared. You're not like us anymore." And taped to the bottom? A photo. It was me. 12 years old, standing at my grandma's kitchen counter, holding a screwdriver and pulling apart an old radio. Everyone else in the background was laughing, distracted, celebrating something. I was the only one looking at the camera. It was my mom who had taken that picture. The message was clear. And it was too late. I didn't respond to the letter. I read it twice slowly, then folded it back up and slid it into the bottom drawer of my desk. I didn't rip it up, but I didn't hold on to it like it meant something either. It felt like a souvenir from a place I didn't live anymore. One last, desperate attempt to repackage guilt as sentiment. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry I walked away before they were finished. After that, I waited a week. Not to cool off, I wasn't angry anymore, but to be sure. To make sure I wasn't reacting emotionally. That this wasn't some dramatic detour in our relationship, but the final turn. And then I wrote the message. It was short. Cold probably. I didn't dress it up or try to soften the truth. I told them I knew everything. The fake consulting firm, the investors, the digital profile using my credentials without my permission. I told them I knew about the backyard conversation, the jokes, the manipulation. I said I had been generous with them for years, But I now saw that generosity wasn't valued. It was weaponized. I told them I was cutting contact permanently. Not just the money. Not just the visits. All of it. I said they were not to reach out again. Not for help, not for closure, not for family events, not even if someone died. I told them that if they crossed that line, I'd pursue legal action and I wouldn't hesitate. I didn't sign it, Love, Emma. Just my name. I hit send. And then, silence. No reply. No phone calls. No hysterical voicemails. Not even some attempt to gaslight me into thinking I was being too harsh. Just a vacuum. It should have hurt. Honestly, I expected it to. But it didn't. I felt something else instead. Like I just stepped out of a room that had been filled with invisible smoke for years. And then something unexpected happened. They started telling people they'd cut me off. Word got back to me through mutuals. Second cousins, high school acquaintances, one of my mom's old co-workers. They were saying I'd changed. That I'd gotten arrogant, distant, too obsessed with money and success. One version of the story had me demanding respect like I was better than everyone else. Another had me storming out of Christmas because no one clapped hard enough when I walked in. They rewrote everything. Bent reality until they looked like the victims of a selfish daughter who forgot where she came from. But I didn't defend myself. Let them talk. People who want to believe the worst about you don't need much of a push. Besides, I didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Instead, I got busy living a different kind of life. I sold the penthouse, not because I couldn't afford it but because I didn't want to be defined by it. I bought an old brownstone in Brooklyn and gutted it from the inside out. A full renovation. Every screw, every tile, every paint stroke. Mine. Something solid. Something I built not for show but for myself. I started mentoring younger women in tech. Not with press releases or panels but one-on-one. I'd invite them to coffee, walk them through resumes, teach them how to negotiate raises and walk away from offers that didn't value them. I told them the truth, not just the pretty parts. I invested in 2 small startups led by women. Both are thriving now. I started taking weekends off. I stopped checking emails at midnight. I went to therapy. I learned to cook more than takeout pasta. I adopted a rescue dog with one ear and a bad attitude. I named him Ghost because that's what I'd become to my family. And then months later, on a bright Saturday morning, my grandmother showed up. She'd taken the train in, refused to let me pay for a car. Said she wanted to see the neighborhood on her own 2 feet. When she walked into the brownstone, she looked around slowly, the hardwood floors, the exposed brick, the shelves lined with books I actually read, and said without smiling, "This feels like you." We sat on the porch with coffee while Ghost barked at pigeons. I asked her quietly if she was disappointed in me. For cutting them off. For not trying to fix it. She didn't even blink. She said, "Emma, you gave them more chances than they deserved. That's not failure. That's grace." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. It's been over a year since I cut them off. No calls. No texts. No unexpected messages. Not even one of those vague Facebook friend requests from a second cousin acting as a spy. Just silence. Pure and complete. It used to scare me, that kind of silence. I used to mistake it for abandonment. I thought silence meant something was wrong. But now I know better. Sometimes silence is the sound of healing. Of space clearing out. Of something unhealthy finally being removed. I still live in the brownstone. It's home now. Every floorboard, every wall, every chip tile I didn't replace. It all reminds me that I built this life. I wasn't given it. It wasn't inherited or passed down, or wrapped in ribbons by people who clapped when it was convenient. I earned it. Quietly. On my own. Work is steady. I'm still leading my team, still building systems most people will never see but rely on every day. I say no to more things now. I used to say yes out of fear. Fear of missing out, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough. That's gone. Now I choose what deserves me. The mentorships have grown. I started with 2 girls. Now I'm helping 10. We meet in person over coffee or just on Zoom when they're stuck at jobs that drain them. I tell them what I wish someone had told me when I was 22. You don't need to be liked to be valuable. You just need to be respected, and that starts with how you treat yourself. Ghost is still his cranky, one-eared self. He hates everyone who gets too close to the house, which I've learned to appreciate. There's a certain peace in knowing someone, even a dog, is always guarding the door. My grandmother visits often. She brings little things. A box of tea. A story from her past she's never told before. Sometimes she asks me if I ever think about going back. Not in a judgmental way, just curiosity. Wondering if I miss them. I don't lie. I tell her I miss the idea of them. The version I used to carry in my head when I was a kid. A mom who protected me. A dad who was proud of me. A sister who didn't see me as competition or an ATM. That version never really existed. But I mourned her for a long time anyway. He gets it. He always does. One afternoon a few months ago I walked past my old photo box. I opened it and saw the same picture that was sent in the letter. Me at 12 working on that broken radio while the rest of the family laughed in the background. I stared at it for a long time. That version of me, she didn't care about being noticed. She just wanted to build something, fix something, understand how things worked. He was never broken. She was just buried under people who were too self-involved to see her. I've thought about burning the photo, about getting rid of the letter, about purging everything that still ties me to them. But I haven't. Not because I want to hold on, but because I want to remember. Not everything painful needs to be erased. Some things are meant to stay as evidence of how far you've come, of how hard it was, and of why you'll never go back. The update. I wasn't expecting anything from them. I meant it when I said I was done. I'd moved on, built a different kind of life, and made peace with the fact that some people never change. But then last week something strange happened. It started with a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. A soft, almost nervous voice. It was my cousin Megan. We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade. I almost didn't listen to the message. But something told me to. She said she didn't want anything. No money. No favors. He just wanted me to know that things back home were different. He told me my dad had quit the fake business months ago. That it never got off the ground. That after I cut ties, it triggered something in all of them. A sort of reckoning. According to her, my mom had started volunteering at a local shelter. My dad was back at his old job, not chasing some imaginary windfall. Brooke had apparently stopped posting her picture-perfect life and quietly went back to school. Community college. Psychology. Megan said no one really talks about me out loud, but it's clear I left a mark. She said they miss me. That my mom cries sometimes when my name comes up. Not in a guilt trip kind of way, but real, private regret. That part caught me off guard. She said my grandmother had something to do with it. That she didn't let them rewrite the story. That she kept telling them the truth. The version I lived through, not the one they tried to sell to everyone else. I haven't reached out. I don't know if I will. Some changes aren't invitations. They're just proof that growth is possible even in people you swore would never evolve. And that's enough for now.